Hello and welcome back to the Transfer Flow, and on today's episode, we preview the weekend's games. Liverpool face United, but how can Amorim's team cause an upset at Anfield? Bayern versus Dortmund. BVB are in their best spot for a while, but can anyone contain Kane, Diaz and Olise? Sunderland play Wolves. Are the Black Cats close to safety already? Plus, we've got PSG's weird numbers and what we'd like to see from Fabian Hürzeler's Brighton. That's all on today's episode of the Transfer Flow. So we're back for our midweek edition of the podcast, and seeing as it's international break and we covered a lot of international football on Monday, we're going to do some previews today and take a deeper look at some sides that interest us. Helping me go through that is Hayden Van Brewer. How are you doing, Hayden?
Yeah, doing really well, Patrick. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm so ready for the international break to be over. The worst time of year. But we get another one next month. Hooray, hooray. Get rid of it. Like I was saying to Neil, get rid of the international break. I will choose the teams that go to major tournaments. Everyone will be happy, presumably. Not the US.
Yeah,
I'm afraid.
I'm here for it. I think you guys covered all the really interesting international teams, especially Ecuador and Norway. For me, are like the teams most likely to see if people play like FIFA or whatever it's called now, like most likely to use to beat up on people who don't know the teams as well. No, I think you guys did a great job covering it. And I was a little bit worried coming into this that we were going to try to keep sniffing around for international stories, but I'm excited to, in the same boat as you, look forward to the weekend, exciting club matchups that I think have some real impact. We're just crossing into that stage of the season for the data nerds where we've got enough sample size to start making some claims on teams, but they haven't even played half the opponents they're going to play. So there's still some schedule effects in there, but we've got some information about what teams have done so far. So it's a good time of year to start kind of speculating and kind of thinking where things could go.
And we've got really lucky, right? In that, maybe it was scheduled this way on purpose, but the international break is ending with a bunch of really big games. Like obviously, we've got the Champions League coming back next week, but at the top of Ligue 1, we've got PSG Strasbourg. At the top of the Bundesliga, we've got Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, and not really at the top of the Premier League, but half at the top of the Premier League, we've got Liverpool, Manchester United this weekend. That's where we're going to start. It is an interesting game. You know, it's second versus 10th in the Prem. When you look at expected goal difference, United are a little bit better, like plus 0.53 to Liverpool's plus 0.43. So you might expect a bit of a closer game based on that, I suppose. I think it probably could be a bit closer just because I think both of these sides will be trying not to lose. Like Liverpool will be like, we need to win this game, sure, but so long as we don't do anything stupid, United probably aren't going to beat us. Liverpool also will be just hoping that the schedule gets a bit kinder to them because, you know, after 5 games, their schedule had not been that difficult. But then they went to Palace away, then they went to Chelsea away. They've now faced the toughest schedule in the league, even though they've twice played against 10 men. So they now need to start like beating up on some sides, right? And showing how dominant we expect them to be over the course of the season.
Yeah, I think the big one that people have sort of talked about during the international break is we're still sort of waiting to see Wirtz kick into gear a little bit.
Yeah.
We haven't seen the best of Mo Salah. It's still a little bit of a question of like, is he dropping off here? Is this like a squad fit thing? Because in terms of like what you see from Mo Salah physically, what you see from him like technically on the ball, it doesn't look like he's really lost anything to the naked eye or something like that. He's still been really good for Egypt, who ended up qualifying for the World Cup. So I think there's like there's not maybe too much worry, but for Liverpool, it does feel like maybe more of a balanced thing. Wirtz is a really interesting profile. Like athletically, he's been awesome. He runs all over the place. He does the pressing and aggressive defending that Liverpool sort of come to expect higher up the field. And it's a question a little bit on usage. Maybe he's not used to how tight the spaces are. I think there's almost definitely some factors going on here where he's not getting the ball as much as he's used to. Like he was really the main outlet in that Xabi Alonso team, like at all points, whether they were set up, whether they were transitioning, he just got the ball. So I think there's a little bit of that going on. But I think we've seen like individual moments where his passing, his awareness, like he looks good. It just hasn't quite been executed yet. And so I think Kim touched on it on the newsletter kind of earlier. Like it's definitely his numbers have dropped off, but I think there's also enough positive signs there to think that there's some things that could click into gear and they could get going. But yeah, they're gonna have to do it. And Man United is a challenging team. This is maybe the results have not gone their way this season, but the
Mm.
underlying numbers look strong. And yeah, I think again, Kim does a great job in the newsletter. Like Embuemo has been awesome this year, even if it hasn't been the goal scoring yet. Like
Mm.
he has really hit the ground running in a big way for United. So I think there's a lot to keep their eye on there.
Yeah, I mean, Man United have taken the most shots in the league so far, and they've had above average quality as well. They've been, I think, only Sheshko and Mount are the only two players in the squad who are not underperforming their expected goals so far. Everybody else is underperforming. So, I mean, that is a bit rough. And actually, if they were a better side as well, they're getting lots of shots off rebounds from other shots too. So like even their desire to shoot from range, as they get better and as they can pen teams in, some of those tendencies might even prove to be helpful, right? Moving around deep blocks. The issue at the moment is the defense, and that's where I look at Liverpool and I think, okay, yeah, it's Anfield, and you're gonna want to be in charge of the ball, but actually United are playing the second highest line in the league this season, and yet they're kind of middling for PPDA. And you think the combination of high line, not that much pressure on the ball, teams are getting in behind a lot. They've given up 3 counter-attacking goals already this season, which is the most in the league. I mean, it's a lot. And they're giving up the worst shot quality against in the league. So I think second worst is 0.13 non-penalty expected goals per shot. United are at 0.16. So, I mean, like, they are dreadful. But then we were talking about getting to the point in the season where we can make claims about size, but also United have spent a lot of time trailing in games. They spent a lot of time chasing, and obviously that's going to give them more XG, but it might also mean they get done on the counter more. I mean, we're still trying to piece out this stuff. How much of what we're seeing in their defensive numbers at the moment, Hayden, do you think is signal, and how much is noise?
I have a hard time picking it out. I think like there's
Mm-hmm.
been some adjustment maybe with Bruno in midfield. Not that that's like
Yeah.
a huge issue. Like I generally look at personnel and I start to think that some of it maybe like is tactical moments, but I'm not really like I wouldn't say I'm overly worried. I think they're still figuring out their press and some of those elements higher up the field. I think
Mm.
there's some real potential for them to improve there, but I think like it has more to do with like disorganization than just like individual players or something like that. That's sort of my like
Mm.
feeling right now is that that's something that can improve. For me, I think just to sort of like touch on the point a little bit, I think a lot of this game will actually be like determined by what United are able to do with the ball against what
Mm-hmm.
Liverpool can do without the ball. Like I think Liverpool will look to press high up the pitch. They will look to be aggressive. And United are a team that when they get put under pressure, I think we saw this last year when they had Onana in goal, and it felt like they had patterns of play where when they were in buildup, they would then go direct and go long.
Mm.
And maybe they're a little bit better set up for that with
Sure.
outlets like Sheshko and Embuemo. I think Cunha is a guy who just can randomly like pull a ball down and start running forward. Like
Yeah.
they do have some outlets there that can make that a threat. I think a lot of that's what this game could come down to is like, can United when they go long from build up because Liverpool press them, can they like get the ball down and create something there? Some of the interesting things on their tendencies are like they don't usually go from build up into this sort of next stage in the middle of the field. They'll go direct and then they'll recycle play and sort of set up their attack sort of lower after that. That's sort
Okay.
of like one of their tendencies. And so I think like if we're seeing that, that's going to be the game is figuring out like can Liverpool nick the ball high and then create danger on that,
Mm.
or if United goes long, do they either again attack quickly and create something, or do they then sort of kill Liverpool, whose then line has to recover back? If they do that repeatedly, that could really wear Liverpool down for the second half and later in the game. So that's a little bit of the setup that I'm keeping my eye on for this game, as opposed to just like United's defense, like making making mistakes or not having the most organized press. I actually think it's like Liverpool's press and United's buildup that will really be more determinative of this game.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it definitely has been a problem we've seen from them. But there's also, but when you were talking about Liverpool's defense recovering there, obviously we're going to see them without Konate as well. So we don't know who's going to come in, like whether it'll be Gomez, like Endo, I think is also recovering from injury. So who knows what the setup's going to be there. That's an interesting gap that Cunha will look at and think, okay, maybe I can exploit something there. But Liverpool, we have seen scrambling defensively this season, have looked appalling. Like, when they're running back towards their own goal, this is terrifying for them. Man United, on the other hand, though, also have a weakness in this regard, right? In that you were showing us some numbers that showed their inefficiency when they're trying to get into their final phase of play. It seems like they're coughing the ball up a lot there.
Yeah. So in that sort of attacking phase where they're on top of the opponent sort of sat in. Again, some of this might be game state related, but that when they've been doing that, they have lost the ball. They haven't been the most efficient at creating shots. They've been more efficient at creating shots when they have a bit more space and start their attacks from deeper in the field. Again, go direct and then sort of play off that when the opponent is sort of on top of them or looking to press them. And yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic. Like they have a pretty weird profile. I think like I'm trying to like piece together this whole story of like Ruben Amorim because like his sporting teams were really effective and they definitely played in ways that were hard for other teams to sort of like really lay a glove on them and really like get after them. And like it's an unusual style of play. And I think it's something we've talked about as the pepification of the Premier League has happened, that we've seen maybe teams have dealt with City better as more teams have played like City, right? As Arteta and Enzo Maresca and these ex-Pep guys have come around, well, it's hard to prepare for City if they're the one game a year where they're going to have 80% possession and how do we train for it in a week? But if there's three teams, then actually we maybe want to spend a bit more time and we can spend more resources to get ready for that. Whereas maybe for Amorim, he was a team that played so differently that they got that bit of joy. The questions are like, can this be an effective strategy in the Premier League, right? I think there's been like the talk on Twitter or in the media is maybe around like, Amorim, you've lost these games playing your back three or 3-4-2-1 or whatever. Like you need to change shape. That's what managers do. They change shape, they change personnel. And then if that's not working, they complain and say, I need to get more players. Like that's what you should be doing because that's what we expect. And like, I think we sort of were in the building. We're like, well, you guys are already paying to get rid of the previous coach. So you're going to have to sit with Amorim for a little bit. And like, yeah, you took a very big swing in the transfer market. Now, if it can work with Šeško, Cunha, and Mbeumo underneath, like Bruno Fernandes, I have a little bit of a wonder of like moving him to this more kind of midfield position. Does that also give him a little bit of ability to extend his career at a top level with United? Like there's some good sort of factors here that may take a little bit of growing pains, but could longer term give them something. But I look at some of these other numbers and I go, there's not a ton of top teams that go direct from their build-up so often. And there's not a ton of teams that are like losing the ball so often, like higher up the field, but then lower in the field, they're like very secure and look fine. Like that's a weird balance for a team if you expect a challenge at the very top. So those are some of the things that are like quirky that you don't usually see that make United unique and maybe like a bit weird to play against. But how much will that be effective against Liverpool that have very top end talent? We'll sort of see. Like it does, you can hear the narrative where that strategy ends up being a problem for Liverpool. We're already seeing like they go long, a flick, like a knockdown. All of a sudden, United are running at that back line, and you sort of PTSD's kicking in. Is that situation going to happen enough, or are Liverpool just going to turn them over in the final third and create chances there? We'll have to see, but I think that continues to be where the game will be won.
I think it's a less predictable fixture than we would previously have believed, right? Like the weaknesses we've seen from Liverpool this season do open avenues to United for a pretty good performance, for the kinds of players that they have. I'm quite intrigued. Like if they, like, as you say, if they can get Cunyan and Burmo or Ahmad or someone running at this back line, that's very interesting. The interesting thing too is, like you say, there are some numbers here where you're like, this is good, and there are other numbers where you think, oh, that's bad. And whether we see those maintain or if they move towards one end or the other, it's the same way that at the moment they're completing a lot of crosses. Tons of crosses in the penalty area. They're completing them. Okay, over time, will they just complete fewer of those and generate fewer shots from them, or have they actually found a sustainable path to chance creation by doing that? It feels like it's so early on, and we're only just seeing Sheshko get into this side. We don't really know if these are sustainable routes.
It's one of the numbers that like I used to have when we had access to like the in stadium tracking data
Mm-hmm.
from the cameras in the stadium. Is you could actually do when like crosses are played, you could count how many attackers and defenders were in the box.
Oh,
And
cool.
one of the metrics that I really liked was like the difference between the two. So like one of the coaching points that coaches I've worked for had was like, we want to get numbers in the box, or if we're defending, we want to get numbers in our own box, right?
Yeah.
And actually, what's more important is like the difference, which again makes sense because the game is about space, and so the difference between the two is actually what you're trying to create. You're trying to create a situation where you're almost always numbers down in the attacking box, like almost always, except for like a breakaway or something. You're going to be numbers down, but how close can you make those numbers? Can you be more often only one player down, or if you can be between 1 and 2 players down on average, that's like a really good place. That means you're going to be creating a lot of chances, and then obviously on the other side you want to create the differential the other way. You want to have lots of players back when the opponent is trying to put the ball in the box. And so that used to be one that I'd always look at, and it feels like teams that play this 3-4-2-1, they have the potential to
Yeah.
overload the opponent's box and do it. The question is going to be, how can they do it in a way that's quick enough to where they get that differential of players, right? That continues to be the question. And I think that's like the key point a little bit for this Amorim team is like, if they go direct, bring it back and hold possession, and then look to attack on top of that. Like, even if when they do get the numbers forward right now, maybe let's just assume they're crossing the ball, they have good numbers in the box, and they're having a bit of success with that. The question is like, are they doing it at times where they're actually creating a differential to then have more opportunity to score goals from that? That's going to be the question maybe that I'm looking for in United in this next period, because like if they do, then that's what could be the thing that helps this team click, start scoring more goals, leading games as opposed to chasing them. And then I think their strategy is really hard to play against when they're leading games. Like if you try to press them and they go long to Sheshko and Mbeumo and have a guy like Bruno who can secure the ball really well and avoid that, then they're really hard to play against. But when they're chasing games, that's a bigger challenge for them.
Mm-hmm. I think this one's very finely poised, and I'm really intrigued to see what Liverpool are going to turn into, because they obviously can't remain the thing that they've been so far. Manchester United are taking small steps along the way, but yeah, with some interesting injuries as well. Like it makes it an intriguing one. You look at when we talk about United trying to put bodies in the box, when you've got Kerkez plus a makeshift centre back, plus maybe Szoboszlai or Bradley or Frimpong or somebody playing right back who's either not that good or not used to the position or whatever, it is an opportunity. So I'm intrigued to see this one. Shall we go on then to a big matchup in Germany? Bayern Munich versus Borussia Dortmund. If you are interested in this game, stick around for our discussion, but also check out the newsletter. Kim wrote a newsletter about this and about Dortmund's start to the season. And to be honest, like they've been shockingly good. They're at plus 0.84 expected goal difference per 90 right now. If they maintain that, I think it would be their best since Tuchel was in charge. Like 2017 time you're looking at here. And Hayden, it's the defense in particular that's looked pretty good. It almost feels like in the Bundesliga we've maybe seen a little bit of a turn in this regard, to recognize that defense might be a bit of an edge in the Bundesliga because there are so many teams that are defensively incompetent. If you can just like get it together and keep teams at arm's length, it's certainly become a little more of a conservative league in some ways, right? Like, obviously we saw the rise of Leverkusen, but Dortmund this season are playing in a slightly more conservative manner too.
Yeah. I think we've seen that across the board. It is interesting. It does sort of feel like in the Bundesliga, obviously Bayern are separate from all of this, but it does feel like teams sort of like all kind of come and go with similar strategies. Like they're all pressing or
Mm,
they're all kind of moving together. Whereas Serie A, we've seen like a diversification as maybe the budgets have gotten
sure.
tight there. That's really interesting. No, I mean Kim did a great job of setting this one up. Dortmund are playing a back three. They've I think it's very clear that Niko Kovac has like come in and like really brought some structure to this team in a really good way. Like
Mm,
I think that's sort of historically kind of since Tuchel and Klopp, that's been the criticism of the team, is that they're very like they've got lots of talent and they can be creative, but they're just a little bit maybe loose with it. And they've brought some real structure here that I think that has helped a lot. Like I think the one I flag is like, yes, this could be like one of the highest XG differences they've had in a long time. It's the type of XG difference that usually gets you first or second in any league. Like if you're this consistently out creating other teams, like it's a real spot. The issue is that the difference between them and Bayern Munich is also the difference between them and about Hamburg in 14th. Like this Bayern Munich
sure.
team is an absolute juggernaut. Harry Kane is. It feels like with Bayern Munich every time I talk about Harry Kane at Bayern Munich, I'm like, Harry Kane is in the best form of his career again. Like, but he really is. He's red
Yeah.
hot right now. I mean, Olise is just like a fabulous player. Like, every now and then it feels like there's a conversation online that we've lost the recipes for guys like Ronaldinho and Ozil and these just magnificent creators. And I look at a guy like Michel Olise and I wonder if there's like it's almost like because he's in France and he's playing in a position like where he's competing with Dembele or something like that, that he doesn't get the credit, or because he's come through the EFL and played for Reading, that he doesn't get the same credit because he's an unbelievable player. And so as much as I want to sit here and like talk about how well Kovac has done, like from taking the team from last year, evolving it, improving it,
Mm,
I also like sit here and go like, it's hard to see a lot of teams outside of Europe's wealthiest and most successful teams taking on this Bayern Munich team right now that are very strong and have these top end attackers in the front performing well, and are just, I mean, the company style just suffocates teams. So
yeah.
it's tricky. You can see that Dortmund present a different challenge for Bayern, but I think the feeling of overall is still this Bayern team is so talented and is rolling hot right now. It's going to be a big uphill climb for Dortmund in this one.
I mean, look, I'm always a Bayern doubter, you know? Like, not really in the Bundesliga. Like, the likelihood is they win this game by multiple goals. Like, they're taking 19 shots per 90. Kane has 14 goal involvements in 6 appearances in the league. Diaz has 9. Whether they are actually really good in Europe this season, I always have a question mark. I'm intrigued. I think they play Arsenal at some point in the Champions League. That'll be a really interesting one to see how good the attack is against an elite defense. But Dortmund, if you were to set up like a good but not great team to face Bayern, this Dortmund team's not a terrible candidate, right? Like they've got that 3-4-3. They have an extra man in build up against a side where, who are always kind of a man down in the press because they've got Kane. And then Dortmund also, they have this back three and then they keep their midfielders in reserve and they kind of run the ball up the wings, using the wing backs and the wide forwards. That's quite intriguing too, because I don't think that Bayern's fullbacks are the best defensively. And I also think Guirassy is just kind of like maybe the smartest striker around. Like he's amazing
That's
at
where I
getting
want to go.
space. Yeah.
100%. That's where I want to go with this. Like, I think that teams in the past that have pulled Bayern center backs out of shape, either wide or centrally,
Mm,
have given Bayern problems. I think those are the times where their fullbacks have a much harder time defending, is where they don't have the cover behind them and they can't be as aggressive. Like this Bayern team likes to have the structure in place to then be really aggressive and get after teams. And I think Guirassy as an outlet, his ability to drop into space and move to different
Yeah.
positions. Like for me, that is like the key for Dortmund. Like if they can get moments like that right, that's where they can really hurt Bayern. And that is something that has like I think a little bit with the back three and some of these things, we're sort of like it's not something Bayern face as much, so theoretically it can give them more problems. The
Mm,
reality is that like Vincent Company is like a really tactical coach. I know he'll have spent a lot of
sure.
time going like, guys, this is their shape. You press him, you'll press him. When you know when the if the wing back is deep, here's what we do. If the wing back is high and the winger comes inside, here's how we address it. Like they're going to have that all mapped out 100%. That's Vincent Company. He's so buttoned up on that. I think the points where they're going to have problems are where their center backs start to get pulled. That's
Mm,
actually going to be the thing that causes them problems, because that's the thing that, I mean, I think most teams, they're like, look, if we're going to be attacking Bayern, it's going to take something special. We're going to need to at least have one guy high in and around an area where if they make a mistake, we can
yeah.
capitalize. And the answer is like Dortmund, if they can use their wingers or tens or whatever you want to call those players right underneath Guirassy to actually do that role and let
Mm.
Guirassy make the game and pull Bayern's defenders out of shape, that's going to be the key to success for Dortmund. And it's a real possibility. Guirassy is exceptional. I think he's a player that we've talked about a lot, and maybe goes into this category of guys that have a little bit of a late bloomer or find their right fit teams. A little bit later in their career, but I think he's really an important player for this game.
And then and I think the fact as well that Dortmund, because they do try and run it so much in those wide positions, but they keep so many guys in reserve. It's like when they lose it, it's not as costly for them as it can be for some Bundesliga sides. Like they have been dispossessed more than any other Bundesliga side this season, but they're allowing very few deep completions per 90. They're allowing fewer than Bayern so far this season. And so it's kind of like they're empowered to take risks in these wide areas. And when they lose it, it's like, well, don't worry, we've still got three centre backs and two midfielders back to help out with it. So, and we also saw last season that there were times when teams would just go over the Bayern press, and suddenly you get those midfielders trying to run back. Like Kimmich trying to recover, and if Guirassy can reel some of those in and like lay it off to Couto or whoever it is, like running out wide, then there's a chance. I don't really like the chances, but it's interestingly set up for the first time in quite a long time. It's an interestingly set up game. Bayern do just look uncontainable domestically at the moment.
Yeah.
But if they can beat teams like this, then I think our estimation of them as a continental threat will go up, right?
I think it's a different challenge, because like I think a lot of the Bayern team and let's be clear, like they want to go man for man, they want to press you high up the pitch, they want it to be a game about dueling, where like, okay, have your midfielder try to duel against Leon Goretzka. This guy turned into the Hulk during COVID. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
you go head to head with us and we will win that every time. So when teams get creative about how they're going to bypass that or create a different type of game, it feels like that's the question we want to see from Bayern every year. Can you adapt and be clever enough to win those types of games? This is one of those games where they're going to have to really do that. And yeah, big opportunity for them to make a statement against their big rival.
Yeah, man. Well, should we go on then from top of the table clash in Germany back to the Premier League, and this time we're going bottom, but again, not quite bottom, right? Because it's Sunderland versus Wolves, and we wanted to talk about this because the relegation battle is now very interesting. Like before the season, we were talking about five, maybe six teams in this conversation. And after the early stage of the season, two teams have made a really good fist of getting themselves out of it entirely. Sunderland are going into this game ninth in the Premier League with a positive goal difference with 11 points. Leeds are on 8 points. And suddenly, if you're down at the bottom of the table, the number of teams that you can feasibly finish in front of has dwindled radically, right? For Sunderland, you're so far away from the relegation zone. And you look at the points, like last couple of seasons maybe a bit weird. You needed 26, 27 points to stay up the last 2 years. Before that, it was like 35, and it's normally 35 to 40, right? But
Yep.
Sunderland now need to play at a 29-point pace over the course of the season to hit 35. They need to play at a 35-point pace to hit 40. So they can play like a really terrible team. They can play like a dreadful team and still probably be safe. And I know they've played the easiest schedule in the league, and Wolves have played one of the hardest. But, when you're in the relegation battle, if you pick up the points, it kind of doesn't matter. Like Wolves, if Sunderland have picked up the points against easy teams, now Wolves have to go and pick up the points against easy teams. So
Yep.
I look at this kind of game and I think, okay, the gap between these two sides is not that big in quality based on the underlying numbers and the strength of schedule, right? Or at least it doesn't look that way right now. I think Sunderland are like minus zero point 0.3 expected goal difference per 90, and Wolves are like minus 0.45. But now it's kind of possible that safety's on the table for Sunderland with some of these games. I mean, if Sunderland win this game, I know it seems very early to say this, but it does kind of feel like they're basically safe.
It's a big moment. I think for these promoted teams, I think there's going to be a realization that any of the more established sides, if you can beat those teams at home, you really give yourself a chance for safety just by doing that. Like
Mm-hmm.
make your home stadium a fortress and really get after those teams. I think the stadium light as like a place to play home games is unbelievable. Like it really is a big advantage for them. Having worked and done an away day there, like it is intense. That was back when they were in League One. Like I can only imagine for this Premier League season, it will erupt. It will be really intense.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, like, I maybe still don't have a ton of confidence in like kind of significant areas of this team. Like I think they're
Yeah.
giving it a go a little bit. We were pretty pro Brian Broby in terms of like if it works out and he can do something for them and they stay up, that's amazing. If not, he'll be really effective in the championship. I still look at this team and go like I'm still figuring out if I'm really buying some of these players and their ability to compete at this level. I'm
Sure.
expecting a really ugly game. Like I'm expecting both teams to be a little bit scared to lose the game as opposed to like going out to win it, which I'd love to see Sunderland do at home, but I still think they're going to be uh, really trying to be cautious and more secure here. Um, you know, it's a little bit tricky for me because I feel like both teams are going to be really either trying to capitalize on a mistake, but really more likely, I think this game is like made by like an individual moment, like
Mm.
some bit of quality here that allows the team to go up, and then the intensity is just going to go through the roof a little bit, and the stress and the pressure of the game. So it's a tough one. Yeah, it's Wolves have not looked great, but I think we sort of expected this Wolves team to not have the most free flowing attack or anything like that coming into the year. We thought that they'd be a more defensive side and try to just get themselves above that
Mm.
that relegation line. They're the one team that hasn't won yet this year.
Yeah.
But again, I do really believe that strength of schedule has played a part in this. They're definitely not the weakest team that I've seen in the league this year, and I do still have questions over like more so over Sunderland. I would say to some extent I've been more impressed with Leeds. I wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily
Agreed.
expecting Leeds to have the gear that they've had. Whereas Sunderland, like I think they've come out, they're organized. I see Xhaka as like a leader on the field. I feel like they've got a pretty robust team. I just think the like ceiling for the team, like they're sailing high right now in the table. It's still pretty tight in the table, to be clear. Like one win can jump you up like 5 or 6 places, or one loss can really hurt you. Like we're still in that stage of the season, so
Mm.
I don't want to draw too many conclusions. But if Sunderland win this game at home, if they then can again, when they have other sort of bottom quarter of the table teams at home, and if they win a few of those games, you're completely right. Like they are not that far from safety if they can get those types of wins. And so this
Mm.
is the type of game that is super important for them. Meanwhile, for Wolves, like they win this game, they're up to 5 points, they're right on the edge of the relegation zone. They get a few more, and we're not having this conversation of them being like really down there. Because I think in terms of like XG, they're kind of more like 15th, 16th, which is
Yeah.
not great. But again, some slightly easier schedule, things like that, and they could end up being just about fine, right? They could end up being like just over the line, but they're going to need to like show that. And the question is, what is the mental toll that this start is taking on them? Like if they let this really bring the team down, then they're not going to get that boost later.
Well, yeah, their numbers are a bit better than this, and like defensively, especially, they're kind of mid-table. But when you don't pinch points in the harder part of the schedule, they're now in a position where like maybe you have to go away and try and win at Sunderland. You know, it's a
Yes.
difficult spot for them, and they are, I think they're like 17th, 16th, 17th in the underlying numbers. Yeah, they're 16th. But then you're like, okay, the teams beneath them though. Okay, Burnley, sure. Burnley have the worst numbers in the league, though they've had a horrible schedule. But Burnley, we expected to go down. They probably will go down. But then the teams beneath them are like Villa, West Ham, and Forest. And you do still look at Villa and Forest, and you're like, these teams have a lot more talent than
Yeah.
Wolves, and probably the capacity to go and spend in January if they need to. And West Ham maybe don't, but West Ham have gone and hired pretty much exactly the guy I'd want in this situation. So then I think,
Correct.
okay, like, yeah, if we just like rank the league by these underlying numbers, maybe that's a bit more positive for Wolves. But I look at the teams beneath them and I think, well, I think at least one of these teams is just going to kind of be okay now. And like Villa have kind of done that. Villa have got some results. And like, so even if the underlying numbers kind of stay crappy, they've got some points on the board. So I don't know. You're bottom of the league. You've got 2 points. You're 3 off safety. You need to be better than these teams, like significantly better over the course of the season if you're going to catch some of them. I find it very hard now to sort of tell a story that ends in Wolves staying up. I think it's a scary
And
situation for them.
yeah, it's sort of like what they need is, I mean, again, to beat Sunderland and then manage to sort of just outpace them, or have a team like Brentford have a real scare, which feels like
Mm,
I think Brentford are a really interesting one because I think the coverage of them has been really positive, but like they haven't
yeah,
really racked up the points yet to make us feel super comfortable yet. Like I think there's been, yeah, just a lot of positivity on like Igor Thiago and stuff, for example.
sure.
They've got good players. I think like Brentford are also not clear yet, as much as that's a team that I like and I think is really interesting. Like this was going to be a hard year. You lose multiple top players, especially the guys that get you a goal, and it could be a challenge later in the year. So
Mm,
I think there's I don't think it's like done and dusted for Wolves, but this next stretch of games after this international break, like yeah, you don't want to be heading into December winless. Like you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's sort of a death sentence. So I think it's an
agreed.
important period, but this is a really important game for that reason. That being said, I don't think it will be as entertaining as Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund.
No, I think that's probably fair to say. Okay, we've got a couple more topics today. Should we do a very quick look at PSG Strasbourg before we have a little discussion about Brighton? We kind of wanted to check in on Hürzeler. Um, what are you looking out for in PSG Strasbourg? Should we look at it that way? Because through the first part of the season, numbers are weird. Like PSG are not blowing that league away by the underlying numbers, even while they're top. And their best players have barely played. Like Vicha's played half the minutes, and Doué and Dembele both played a third of the minutes. Strasbourg, on the other hand, kind of flying.
Yeah, really good. They're top of the table in our handy dandy XG difference. It's real question of like, well, PSG, like, well, they don't have all their guys. Well, yeah, their second string of guys are better than just about everyone else in the league as well. Like these are all full fledged
Mm,
internationals. Like we're talking about guys like Bradley Barcola and things like that. Like we're still talking about very good players available for PSG. Yeah, I've been surprised. It feels like PSG hasn't had the offensive cutting edge that I think we've come to expect in terms of like some of the stylistic signals. They're still pressing really high and aggressively. They're still keeping a lot of the ball. It feels like right now, and I don't know if this is like a factor of having, especially a guy like Doué and Dembele who command the ball a bit in the final third and vary their position. I don't know if it's a factor of that, and guys are maybe a bit more, I don't want to say static, but a bit more fixed to their roles. That
mm,
Vitinha has been the player that has to go and make the game for them, which isn't a problem.
yeah,
I think Vitinha can do that. I think he's very talented. But it feels like his usage is sort of very high right now, higher up the field. Like I think when we're used to seeing PSG in in like top European play when they're playing these big matches. Vitinha and Joao Felix in the midfield, like Joao Neves, excuse me, are there like cheats for getting out of the back and then navigating pressure in the middle to then sort of set up on top of teams and have the interchanging forwards and the things that are so good in the final third. And it feels like right now, like they don't necessarily need him to get out of the back, but then he's having to make more of the play in the final third. And I don't know if that's like, that's not ideal. I don't know if it's just that like when they're really clicking, they have more fluidity. But yeah, it feels like they haven't gotten going yet this year. That could also just be a factor of like a really long campaign last year that then was followed up by the Club World Cup in America. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of football, and any top team has guys that are just full-fledged internationals playing a lot of games. So I don't know how much that's a factor right now, but it does feel like it's a great moment to have this game coming right after an international break, where it sort of feels like Strasbourg has a real opportunity to make something happen here. Now, my like worry of this game is it actually feels to me that the way this game gets made is both teams are going to, if they try to play out of the back. We've talked, I think you guys have talked about how Strasbourg are a little bit of this like Chelsea Junior. Like they will, try to be very tactical and strategic on how they move teams and do that. It kind of feels like the game might just be who can turn the other one over in the final third, create a chance and win the game there, and then just sort of stall with possession and prevent chances from there. It sort of feels like that's where it might go, which is a little anticlimactic when we're talking about like, could Strasbourg kind of take the reins a little bit and give us a title race and challenge PSG?
And Strasbourg feel like they don't kind of have a full complement of attacking weapons at the moment. Like it feels like it's very much like Omega or Panicelli, and the guys behind them have either seen their output dip quite a bit or are still bedding in the case of like Kenry Payas, for example.
Yeah.
I wonder what it will look like with PSG. It feels kind of like last year in a sense, where before Christmas we were like, we'll see what this PSG side is. We were obviously a bit more interested this year because they won the Champions League, but it was only really by January time that they started to transform. Right now, playing guys like Mayulu up top, again, it seems like we're none the wiser, but as long as they keep winning the big games, I guess everyone will pay attention. This is an interesting one for Strasbourg. If Strasbourg can do something here, then that would be a considerable step forward for them, where it feels like up till now they've been a feeder club and they're interesting as a result of that, but they haven't really looked threats to do much by themselves. If they can maintain these numbers where they're close to plus 0.9 expected goal difference per 90, then by the end of the season, we're going to be taking them super seriously. And of course, as well, there's this weird thing in Ligue 1 too, where you've got like this disconnection between the four teams that actually press aggressively and everybody else who does kind of nothing. Like if you watch the teams at the bottom of Ligue 1, like they are shockingly passive. Like you compare them to Premier League teams and they really don't do that much out of possession. And then it's like Lille, Lyon, Monaco, PSG, who are all just super, super aggressive. It's a very strange division right now. Let's leave them there because, I think that game's on Friday night. Check it out. And the last thing we wanted to do today was have a quick look at Brighton. Because Brighton are a team who, we've been very positive about in the past. Obviously, we like their recruitment. And every season, we hope it will be the season that Brighton really explode. Their numbers are actually fine this season. In fact, their underlying numbers are better than Bournemouth's right now. And nobody has an issue with how Bournemouth are playing. But it does still kind of feel like there should be more juice in this squad than Hürzeler is managing to squeeze out, right? Like, I mean, maybe I'm just saying this as a bit of a Hürzeler denier, but as I said, I think really early last season, I start to look around this squad with the amount of money that's invested and the depth that they have in multiple positions. And I think if I was looking to upgrade this team now, I'm kind of looking to upgrade the manager maybe rather than a particular player at this stage. I don't know if that sounds harsh to you, but they've changed quite a bit this season as well. Let's look at it that way. Like they press really high. They've won more final third tackles than any team in the Premier League. They've had more high turnovers, more shots, more goals from those high turnovers than any other team in the league. On the other hand, they give up pretty bad shots against them. And you do quite often see them. Like I think I think only Wolves have failed with more tackle attempts than them. And when you actually look at them, you do see that. You see guys go out to press, get beaten, and suddenly you'll see Brighton's entire back line look completely exposed. It feels like the midfield needs to be more positionally disciplined than they currently are if they're going to make this style work.
Yeah, it's I agree with all the things that you're saying. I kind of look at it and I wonder a little bit like we talk about this Brighton team. Could they be the ones to make the jump? They've got good depth. Their starting lineup has some really talented and strong players. It's one of the teams last season that had some of the most ties in the league. I think they went into the summer. For the most part, it was a summer where they were buying kind of young players, younger talent that we think are maybe more for the future, as opposed to something that would like impact the team in a super strong way right now. So my feeling is like, did they really change their ability to do that? They've started the season. They've had a number of ties. It feels like that's sort of the thing. Like, could they be a bit more secure in the back or add a little bit more going forward to then flip those games? Because otherwise it feels like, yeah, they're essentially performing there or thereabouts of the talent of the squad. Like they're kind of right in that mix. They're probably uh, outperforming their budget in terms of like a spend side of things. Like they're higher in the table than what their spend would indicate. They're not like blowing it out of the water though, and really taking that next step. So I don't have like a super like when we prepare for this podcast, maybe this is like the behind the scenes. Like we'll like especially you and Rishi will send topics and I'll look at it and there'll be like one topic where I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so ready for that. I've got a really good stance. I'm like really prepared for this. I've had this conversation during the week with someone, and then there'll be like a couple where I'm like, okay, I've got a feel for this, and let me do a little bit of just digging to see if that checks out. But let me take a look at it. And then there's some where I'm like, I don't know. Like I don't know if I've got something here. I'm kind of nervous about that. And this Hürzeler one is one where I'm like, my almost like fear is that like he's doing fine. He's probably not crazy elevated the level of his team, but he hasn't hurt the team at all.
Yeah.
They've tied a lot of games. Do I see the like really obvious way to like change that? I don't have like a super obvious criticism or way to do that. And it feels like saying Brighton is largely fine and they probably won't make the jump and they probably won't seriously regress. That it like how does that sort of sit with us? They'd have to get creative. I don't think they're going to do anything really significant in January to really change that feat. And I think they'll probably ride this out, hope some of these players can kick on a bit, hope some of these young guys can maybe add something to the team. And if they can be right in a very tight mix for some of these European places and just get a little bit of the thing rolling towards the end of the year, that just might be the difference as opposed to anything really significant or taking a really dramatic shot earlier in the season, which is,
yeah.
I
kind of want one of their midfielders to step up a bit defensively. Like I do think they are a very talented but pretty error-prone midfield. Yeah, I feel like I just have a load of questions for them. I'm like, okay, this team spent the third most time losing in the league. Okay, if that starts to get a bit more normal, like what do their numbers look like then? They seem very easy to progress the ball against down the flanks, and the fullbacks aren't really doing a great job with like back post crosses or balls in behind them. Like, can that improve? Like, does the Cowper get up to speed in the Premier League and that gets better? Or does he kind of remain this because he's never been that defensively solid as a fullback? I also kind of wonder, like, it feels like this is also a team, like, maybe Hürzeler is looking at the talent he's got. Maybe he's looking at the way the league is going and they're trying to change style. Because, the last few years, Brighton, when you looked at their speed and the way that they built up, they were much more akin to like Manchester City than a team of their resources, really. And now this league, where this season, where the league is bittier than ever, we're seeing almost 2 minutes less ball in play time this season than last year, which is crazy. Suddenly they're like the second most direct team in the league, like second fastest speed towards goal. Well, is that because they've been losing a lot, or are they trying to basically build themselves into more of a Bournemouth type team,
Yeah.
understanding that looks to be where the division is going, rather than like the slow possession, peppified stuff that you were talking about before? Like, I don't really know. Like all this kind of stuff at the moment, it feels like it's hard to get a handle on them, and but certainly, I guess, is Hürzeler hurting them? Like, probably not, though they do seem to make a lot of errors in build up. And when you see all those errors in build up after a while, you're like, okay, are these player problems, or is this a manager problem? But you do sort of look at the talent, and at a certain point, you think, if we could just put a really good coach in charge of this team, maybe something magical could happen. Because when you go through the squads in the Premier League that are more talented than Brighton, it's a really short list, man. Like, it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like yeah. My take on them is still kind of, I don't know how good Brighton are, but in my heart, I believe they can be really, really good. And right now, they're just kind of fine. Like, should their underlying numbers be worse than Manchester United's? I don't know about that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard looking at the other managers and things because I think like we look at it and you go, well, I don't really, in my heart of hearts, believe that like this Bournemouth team with Iraola have like, or if Iraola was in at Brighton, it would look so significantly different and they'd be stronger. Like I think you and I are both very strong believers in Glasner.
Mm,
I think there's he's probably the one coach that I look at that's outside of the very top teams that I'm like, I kind of think he could make a difference in a lot of places because I think
mm,
he's really practical in that way. But like, does that make sense? Like, he's also more of a conservative coach probably than what Hürzeler wants to do. And
sure.
like, do you want a more conservative style when you've got Minta and Matoma and these guys that are so good with the ball on their foot? Like, not just running. Like, these guys are so good with the ball on their foot. Do you want to take that away from them? Not necessarily. Does that style work as well when you've got a Jan Paul Van Hecke who can just sort of dictate possession as a center back? Like,
Mm,
I don't have a huge worry about it, but I'm still waiting to see something click. And I think you're right. I think ultimately it's a midfield one. There's sort of it feels like trying different things, having like O'Reilly go. I think it's technically a loan to Marseille is what
mm,
that move is. And
think
so it's
so.
sort of one where it's like he kind of generally looked pretty good last year. If he maybe some injury worries and maybe wasn't just the fit that they're looking for, they're still kind of playing around with that to try to get a different answer in there. I kind of hope they do because like they are still trying to be an attacking, fun team that has that, and they just need to figure out what's that ingredient to where they can stop drawing games. I think that's
Mm,
really what it comes down to. It's not a huge margin that separates them from being where we think they could be, and it's a little bit about just being patient till they can get that solution. And to be honest, like I kind of hope Hürzeler can do it because Brighton has had such a great success story of developing coaches and trusting them and being able to work with really exciting young coaches while still maintaining like consistency in terms of like bringing good, really talented players
mm.
through the team. So we'll keep our eyes on them for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's us done for today's episode. I'm looking forward to us having real football to talk about again next week. But thank you for sticking with us through the international break, everybody. Hayden, people will be seeing you again soon, but where can they see you in the meantime?
Yeah, I'm H Van Brewer on Blue Sky. Yeah, looking forward to these matches. We are very back. We are very back.
We're very back, and we want your input. As you know, we're going to be starting up a Patreon soon where we will have extra episodes every single week for you guys. And we need your questions to help produce the content for that show. We want to answer the questions that you have. So if there are players, managers, teams you want us to look into, if there are bigger questions about football, larger stuff about the way that leagues are going or how set pieces might be changing the game, then please do send them in. Drop them in the comments below or get at us on social media and we will add them to the pile and we will start dealing with them over the next few weeks. Keep your eyes peeled for the Patreon information. But in the meantime, thank you very much for being here. Please do like and subscribe to the channel. Leave us a 5-star review. and we'll catch you next time. Bye bye.